What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. All right, let's move on to our power rankings before we get out of here for the day. So, two teams dropped out from last week, the Heat and the Magic. The Heat lost 3 straight games to the Mavs, the Thunder, and the Wizards, and then the Magic lost back-to-back games against the Knicks and the Pacers, so they're out for right now. New in at number 10 is the Phoenix Suns. Massively impressed by their win against the Nuggets in Denver. Really showed that they can defend when they want to. Nurkic is a good, big physical body to be able to throw at Nikola Jokic. They have a lot of length off the ball when Kevin Durant is defending the way that he has. They were flying around in rotation. I thought Bradley Beal digging down off KCP and playing passing lanes and playing the roll man was really impactful for them defensively. And then they showed that they can get to their over-the-top shot stuff easier than some other teams can against Denver. And Kevin Durant really got going there down the stretch. Again, I would still pick Denver over Phoenix in the series, but I thought that was a really encouraging win. And then even in the Celtics game, like they really ran into some shortcomings personnel-wise with Devin Booker out, but there were some really encouraging moments there. And Kevin Durant is just on an absolute heater. 3 straight 35-plus point games, averaging 38 points per game over his last 3 games. So Phoenix on the up and up. Number 9, New Orleans Pelicans. They had an undefeated road trip out east, which has them riding a 4-game winning streak. They have a 101 defensive rating in that span over those 4 games. They actually have the best defense in the league over the last 15 games, really shutting teams down in the paint. Just 45.9 points in the paint allowed per 100 possessions, which is best in the league. Zion and Brandon Ingram are both hooping right now. They're both averaging like 21 and 7 efficiently. But every single time I believe in the Pelicans, they immediately fall apart. So hopefully this will be something that they can actually sustain. Number 8, the New York Knicks. They had another 1-2 week. They lost a rock fight to the 76ers throwback style game, both teams in the 70s. But they had a big win against the Red Hot Magic on Friday. And then most importantly, in that game, Jalen Brunson more or less looked like himself, which was encouraging after the knee contusion that he had. Still just floating the ship while all these guys are out with injury. Number 7, the Cleveland Cavaliers, a 2-2 week. 2 really impressive wins against the Celtics and the Timberwolves. Big comeback against the Celtics, fueled by Dean Wade's shooting, a clutch win, overtime win against the Minnesota Timberwolves, but then 2 ugly losses against the Hawks and the Nets. They finally got their defense back on track, which was an issue a few weeks ago, but now they're having major issues on offense. They had just a 109 offensive rating last week. They really need to get Donovan Mitchell back to tie all of this together. Number 6, the Minnesota Timberwolves, also a 2-2 week. Big win over the Pacers. Red hot late game shot making from Anthony Edwards made 3 straight pull up jump shots at the end of the game. Mike Conley made a big one too. So they finally made some shots late and closed out a game. But then they lost another clutch game to the Cavs, and then they lost to the Lakers last night. Still experimenting with lineups since Karl Towns went out. They've tried Kyle Anderson the first couple of games. That came with a boatload of issues. They obviously, with Gobert out, they brought Naz Reid in at the center spot, but they ended up going smaller with Nickeil Alexander-Walker against the Lakers. And that might be another option they could go with is if they don't want to start Naz next to Rudy Gobert, just go with Nickeil Alexander-Walker especially against speed teams. I'm not sure if you want to do that against the Lakers necessarily, but against speedier teams, because that was obviously a big issue, but they just were so shorthanded with both Gobert and Cat out. But against teams like the Lakers, I'd probably go with Gobert at center and Naz Reid. But I don't hate the idea of using Nickeil Alexander-Walker, especially against speed teams. Again, a lot of times in situations like this, I can sympathize with this problem with the Lakers because of their issues at the 3 spot. I want them to play Rui, not because he's a natural fit at the 3, but just because he's their 5th best player. And at this point, you're better off just playing your best basketball. If you don't have a clear, obvious positional fit, play your best players. And that's the thing is Naz Reid, to me, playing next to Rudy Gobert might be a little bit of an issue, but he's just a really good basketball player. And so having him out there might just be a better option than some of the others. And the best player in your perimeter core that doesn't start is probably Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And so that's why I'd go with him if you wanted to lean more towards into a more perimeter oriented team. Number 5, the Los Angeles Clippers. beat the Bulls in an absolute dogfight that went to overtime, but their stars had to play big minutes, so they ended up having to essentially punt against the Milwaukee Bucks yesterday. Really weird schedule game, too, where the tip-off was like on a Sunday afternoon, less than 24 hours after the last game ended. So that led to a 2-2 week. They also blew the first Milwaukee game in a game that Giannis was out. That was the game that they blew late. They're just 7-7 in their last 14 games. 17th in offense and 23rd in defense over that span. So the Clippers hitting a little bit of a midseason speed bump. Number 4, the Milwaukee Bucks, 1-2 so far on their West Coast road trip. Their defense has not traveled with them. They have a 123 defensive rating in the 3 games. Big part of that is all 3 teams they played are teams that kind of specialize in beating drop coverage, right? Like you, even against the Clippers with James Harden, like he can just get into the lane and make plays as a passer. But they really struggled against the Laker guards. The Laker guards were just getting wherever they wanted. Again, like teams that thrive in that like kind of mid-range, kind of shifty guard type of offense, they're going to have success against the Bucks with the deep drop coverage that they run. Big silver lining though for the Bucks, I thought in the Lakers game in particular, we saw some of the best Dame Giannis pick and roll reps that I've seen this season. There's specific timing stuff that they're starting to figure out where like timing the roll of the screen is so pivotal, right? Because you want to hold the screen long enough to get the defender to get caught up on you so that the ball handler can get some separation, but not so much, especially when they're blitzing, that you're not available when the pass comes. And so timing is so absolutely critical, but they're really starting to get their 1-2 down with that, where like Dame is coming off and throwing the pass right as Giannis is turning and hitting him in stride. They're really starting to get high quality roll opportunities out of that. They're starting to clear the side more. That's, I would imagine, is another thing that Doc Rivers has brought in. They're starting, again, that's just where you don't have a defender in the corner so that when Giannis rolls, he sees the entire floor in front of him instead of having to account for something that's kind of behind him to his left or behind him to his right. So like that cleared side thing, I think just kind of simplifies that process. Giannis is making some really nice reads out of the roll as well. There's a lot of encouraging stuff on the Dame Giannis pick and roll front that I think is enough to, again, this is tough. The Western Conference is tough. I've been talking about this throughout the season. I want to say the Bucks are just 13-10 against the West, and the Celtics are just, if I'm not mistaken, 16-7. So like for as dominant as those two teams have been against the East, the bottom of the East is so weak you can really rack up wins against the bottom of that conference. The Western Conference is tough. It's not easy to get wins on a West Coast trip, and it's more important, like again, to just look at in the bigger picture, you need to get your defense where it needs to get, but you also need to have the Dame Giannis pick and roll humming at the absolute peak level, and they're getting closer to that every single day. Number 3, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Really tough loss in that matchup with the Lakers. Just a really bad matchup for them. LeBron and AD just eat up their front line every single time they play. But then they went into an easier stretch of their schedule. They got 2 easy wins against Portland and Memphis, and then Shea just went absolutely crazy in a big win against the Miami Heat. They are 10-2 in their last 12 games, so they've moved up to 3 in our power rankings. Number 2, the Boston Celtics. Back-to-back losses for the first time since November. They blew their lead against Cleveland where they couldn't make a jump shot for 9 minutes and struggled to score in the paint. And then they lost to Denver, which we've broken down in excruciating detail on the show over the past week. But they did bounce back with an impressive win against the Suns on Saturday. In case you missed it, we broke that game down at the top of this show. So you'll want to, if you're watching the breakout clip, you want to go watch the full episode for the detailed breakdown of their win against the Suns. They have been the 3rd best points in the paint per 100 possessions team in the last 7 games. Jaylen Brown is absolutely hooping, playing the best basketball of his career. And Jayson Tatum, pull-up jump shot coming around since January 1st, 1.07, points per pull-up jumper. Number 1, new number 1 for the first time in like what seems like 2 months, the Denver Nuggets. Obviously a tough loss to Phoenix. I was weirdly impressed by Denver in that game because Phoenix like punched them in the mouth and was really outplaying them for like 2.5 quarters. But Denver hit the Jets there in the middle of that 3rd quarter, and Phoenix was just holding on for dear life. And they worked their way all the way back into the game. And then Phoenix made a short little run to get it back up to a 9-point lead. And then Denver just executed like the most perfect 12-0 run I've ever seen. But KD made a huge pull-up jump shot to send it to OT, and then he made a few more in OT, and they just kind of lost to a KD shot-making performance. So like a lot of encouraging Nugget stuff out of that. And I also thought it was Nikola Jokic, one of his worst games of the season. But he bounced back and they were magnificent against Boston. Their half-court execution was unbelievable. I really think they have some room for improvement in that matchup too. a really encouraging week for Denver. Again, I still think they're the best team in the league. And after the win against Boston, and with Boston coming off 2 losses, I thought they deserved the top spot for this week.